Good evening to all. We are on the third Sunday in this season of Lent, and whenever I remember my first arrival to Canada some years back, it was in the month of March. First time ever I am taking such a long flight, almost 18 hours or 20 hours on a plane, and you're coming from 25, 30 degrees. Over 24 hours, you are in minus 20 degrees. That was it. It was such an experience. Like when you get out of the airport in Montreal, I just arrived in 2012, I can see that so many buildings, so many cars, less people. And the most surprising fact that I had was, as I was being driven by my superior to the community, I was sitting and watching. This is the first time ever I get out of my country. I just see these big buildings, gray colored or different colors, and trees. That was my big surprise. Trees without leaves. It's the first time I see something like that. Trees without any leaves. And I thought, what happened here? There was some forest fire and all these trees were burnt. I mean, literally that was my thought. What happened? How can these all trees be without leaves? First time I see that. And getting used to the winter, the process of, fall, spring, all these, I was getting used to that later on. But I was just surprised. No leaves all over. Trees like burned. The first reading that we have where Moses encountered this burning bush in the wilderness. I'm just trying to focus on the story of the Moses. Moses is a great leader in the Old Testament. And his past is he has got a very different past. Was born into a Hebrew family, and he was saved because to save his life, his mother and sister does something, sent him a little cradle on the water, it moves on, and the Pharaoh's daughter picks up. He is then raised in the Pharaoh's court as a prince. His life completely changes. And then Moses, he is living such a princely life. He's a prince there. He couldn't be the next Pharaoh. Something happens and he is seeing one of these Egyptian brutally assaulting and killing his own people, Hebrew people. Then he just turns against. Out of impulse, he kills somebody, and the rest of the life he repents on it. He flees. The impulse that makes him kill this Egyptian, then he just flees because of fear, because of shame and embarrassment. He goes away, and when he goes to Jethro, whose daughter later he marries, and settled down there, and he just became nothing. He came from a very nothing background, goes to this princess kind of situation, again back to nothing. And Moses is now a shepherd, taking care of the sheep of Jethro, his father-in-law. That's what he does. He could have had a great life, and he just loses out of impulse of something. And now he is just figuring out his life. Moses is a figure that is we are trying to reflect today. This journey that Moses has, he is encountering a special event. That is part of the first reading. A part of the first reading that we listened, but earlier part of this one, we see that Moses is always invited by God to do something very important, something great. And for Moses, that was not so easy to get into the plan of God, which took a lot of time. He has encountered this burning bush experience. In the desert, it is very common to have bushes being burnt. But this burning was very different because the bush was not engulfed or consumed in fire, still kept burning. That was very special. And this encounter, then we see in the gospel today that the Lord telling to Moses, where you are standing is a place which is very holy. Stay there. Reflecting on the life of Moses, his past, and what Moses becomes, has something to tell us in this Lenten journey. As Moses is saying, I must turn aside and look at this great sight and see why the bush is not burned up. All about I, myself, I am trying to do it. Then later on we see God telling to Moses, I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Where Moses trying to assert so imperative using that very bossy language. But now, God is taking the command and the lead. God tells, I am the Lord. I hear the cry of my people, and I want you to go to them. The life of Moses is then turning. He is just explaining all his difficulties. He has got stammering, he has got problems. Like any leader, anyone who is called to the mission of God in the Old Testament always comes with this all excuses, running away from God. And God naturally, in his own time and way, brings them back to his mission. Not that they were perfect. None of us are perfect. But he is bringing them back to God's mission gradually. And we see that God is calling Moses back again for his mission, which is a big mission. He is the one supposed to lead the Israelites out of slavery to the promised land. And God was looking somebody like Moses, and the plan was already set. For Moses to see the plan in his life took so much of time. He had to undergo all these experiences. That's a way of spiritually telling. We cannot grab God or manipulate him. We cannot bring God into our control, manipulate him. God is God. And this is where this famous saying comes. God says to Moses for the question, who are you? What is your name? And God says, I am who am. Very powerful. St. Thomas Aquinas tells, God is not a being like chair or the planet or like the trees or us. God is not a being. He is the reason for all being. And he is beyond everything and he is close to everything. When Moses is invited to join the plan of God, it takes a while for him to get into that plan. As we see in the prophet Isaiah, Jeremiah, or anybody invited to the plan of God, it takes a while. And this week we celebrated the feasts of St. Patrick and St. Joseph, great feasts that we had the past week. St. Patrick, from a different background, is invited and he undergoes so much of hardships to preach the message to the people of Ireland. St. Joseph, all his silence, his hard works, his hard struggles, all for bringing Jesus and saving him from the harms. Friends, the Lenten journey is a journey of sacrifices, of aligning ourselves to the plan of God. It is where Moses was making his plans, myself plans, where God is telling, no, my plan is different for you. There's a beautiful, you might have known this great book, Running with the Giants, which is about the Old Testament leaders and their leadership kind of stories it speaks about, which gives us few great points to reflect. When your problems of life overwhelm you, abandon the safe path and live by faith. Moses had this opportunity to play safe in his life. He grew up in the palace of Pharaoh, and he had all court privileges. He could have remained easily in Egypt. But Moses is deciding something. He is finding something different in the desert, and he just aligning himself to the plan of God. At times it is very difficult for us to align ourselves to the plan of God. So Moses is telling us, abandon the safety that we just try to create around us and live by the faith. And at times we can be the people, when we live by the safety, we can be trapped in the past. It always haunts us, it always keeps us down and doesn't let us grow. We are trapped in the past. The past will keep us chained, our past like being chained to this something so heavy, and we carry the heaviness in our hearts. when we are trying to live safe, and we are again satisfied about today. We just try to live that minimum of our life, where God is asking us to be living the maximum. Glory of God when man fully alive, St. Irenaeus tells. It's the fullness of life when we live, it is where we can be satisfied, not living the minimum. And finally, do not be afraid of tomorrow. Moses was trying to live in the safety. He was trying to be haunted. He was living a life haunted by his past, satisfied with the present and afraid of the tomorrow, because he was always the fear of being caught something. He tried to live, and he tried to live his life fully when he aligned himself to the plan of God. My friends, the final words of Moses could be to us is to live by faith, recognize that God is already at work in you. It's a beautiful message from this book, Running with the Giants. God is always at work in us. When we try to make our plans for life, find the safety and the comfort in our own songs, God is telling us, abandon, live by faith, because God is already at work in you. You cannot be grabbing God, manipulating God, because God is, I am who I am. God bless you.